Udit Maria and welcome to SC Global News. From the new era of harmony in the Middle East with the US brokered hostage swap deal to the Holy Father urging every Catholic parish to observe World Mission Sunday, we have many stories to cover. US President Donald Trump called for a new era of harmony in the Middle East after Israel and Hamas carried out a historic US brokered hostage swap deal. Speaking at a global summit in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump urged regional leaders to move beyond decades of conflict and embrace peace through Abraham Accords. Alongside leaders from Egypt, Turkey and Qatar, he signed a document outlining Gaza's reconstruction and future governance. The summit ended with widespread optimism as many hailed Trump's efforts as a turning point for lasting stability in the region.
After both warring sides, Israel and Hamas, implemented the historic hostage swap deal brokered by the United States President Donald Trump called for a new era of harmony in the Middle East on Monday during a global summit on Gaza's future held in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh. Trump, who had just visited Israel to monitor the implementation of the US brokered ceasefire deal, told attendees that the signing of the Abraham Accords would allow different warring nations in the Middle East to put their old feuds behind them. He urged nations to declare that our future will not be ruled by the fights of generations past. Alongside Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Trump signed a document designed to lay the groundwork for Gaza's reconstruction and long-term governance. Trump explained that the document would spell out rules, regulations, and many other things, adding that it would stand the test of time. During a media briefing, Trump described the Gaza ceasefire as the beginning of a beautiful Middle East and encouraged world leaders to join the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations during his first term in 2020. The summit concluded with broad international optimism as leaders praised Trump's diplomatic engagement and pledged continued cooperation in rebuilding Gaza and promoting regional stability. Observers hailed the moment as a rare instance of unity in a region long scarred by conflict, one that would redefine the Middle East's path toward lasting peace.
Donald Trump delivered a powerful address in Israel's Knesset celebrating the release of 20 Israeli hostages taken by Hamas during the 2023 attacks. The emotional moment followed a US brokered deal that ended a 2-year conflict through a prisoner exchange. Lawmakers erupted in cheers as Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana praised Trump as Israel's best buddy, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that no president had ever done more for Israel.
President Donald Trump gave a huge speech in Israel's Knesset, calling it the dawn of a new Middle East. Why? Because 20 Israeli hostages grabbed by Hamas in the awful October 7, 2023 attack are finally free. This came after a US-helped deal where Israel swapped Palestinian prisoners to end a tough 2-year war that hurt so many. Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana called Trump Israel's best buddy in the White House, and the crowd went wild, waving Trump the Peace President hats. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was all smiles, saying, "No president's done more for us. Nobody's even close." Trump even asked Israel's President Isaac Herzog to let Netanyahu off the hook on some legal troubles, and people cheered like crazy. Netanyahu then said Trump deserves Israel's top award, the Israel Prize, and Ohana suggested a Nobel Peace Prize for 2026. Trump said, "This war is done, the fighting's over, and the Holy Land's at peace." He took shots at Obama and Biden, saying they didn't support Israel, and bragged about ditching the Iran nuclear deal. 2 protesters tried to make a scene with the genocide sign, but Trump just laughed it off, saying that was handled quick. with his daughter Ivanka, son-in-law Jared Kushner, and advisor Steve Witkoff by his side. Trump's planning a big summit in Sharm el-Sheikh to figure out Gaza's future with tons of leaders. Netanyahu sitting it out for the holidays but promised to keep pushing for peace through strength. As families hug their loved ones again, Trump's dream of a peaceful, thriving Middle East is giving folks hope.
Erica Kirk will accept the Presidential Medal of Freedom on behalf of her late husband Charlie Kirk on October 14th, a date that would have marked his 32nd birthday. Turning Point USA will be live streaming the ceremony on their YouTube and Rumble channels at 1 p.m. Arizona time. Charlie Kirk will be posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom on Tuesday, October 14th. According to Turning Point USA, the Medal of Freedom will be received by Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, on what would have been his 32nd birthday. Kirk was a popular conservative political activist and media personality who was shot dead at Utah Valley University during his America Comeback tour. US President Donald Trump announced his decision to award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom just one day after his assassination. At the time, he described Kirk as a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions. Trump expressed deep sorrow over his loss, stating that Kirk would be greatly missed, but added that his voice and courage he inspired in countless people, especially the youth, would continue to live on. Medal of Freedom is considered the highest honor a civilian can receive from the federal government. They are awarded to individuals who have made exceptional contributions to the security or national interests of America, to world peace, or to cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. On October 10th, Trump announced that there would be a great celebration at the White House, referring to Kirk as a friend of his and a friend of all ours. The medal ceremony is scheduled to take place on October 14th, which also happened to be Kirk's birthday. Turning Point USA will be live streaming the ceremony on their YouTube and Rumble channels at 1 p.m. Arizona time. On October 13, Cardinal Mauro Gambetti led a penitential rite at St. Peter's Basilica to purify the main altar following a desecration on October 10th. The ceremony included a procession, the sprinkling of holy water and incense. Pope Leo XIV expressed deep concern upon learning of the incident. This marks the second desecration at St. Peter's Basilica within the past year.
Cardinal Mauro Gambetti, Archpriest of St. Peter's Basilica and Vicar General of the Pope for Vatican City, presided on October the 13th over a penitential rite of reparation following an act of desecration inside the basilica. The ceremony began with a penitential procession at 12:45 p.m. local time. It took place at the main altar of the confession. According to Father Enzo Fortunato, Director of Communications for St. Peter's Basilica, the rite focused on asking God's forgiveness and purifying the sacred site. The cardinal sprinkled holy water and offered incense as part of the ritual. A man whose identity remains undisclosed climbed onto the altar of confession and defiled it in a profane manner on October the 10th, prompting Vatican security to detain him immediately. Pope Leo XIV reportedly expressed deep sorrow over the incident. He instructed Cardinal Mauro Gambetti to restore the sanctity of the altar. According to Catholic news agency, this marks the third act of desecration at St. Peter's Basilica in 2 years and the second in 2025. In February, a man damaged parts of the altar, and in June 2023, a protester disrobed at the same site.
A Christian pastor has been arrested in China along with dozens of church staff and members as part of a wider crackdown. More than 30 pastors and church workers were either detained or became unreachable by their families. Zion Church, which had been previously raided and shut down by authorities in 2018 during an earlier wave of repression against independent churches. Since then, they have been operating in hybrid mode at various undisclosed locations throughout China. The US has called for the release of 30 leaders of one of China's largest underground church network who were detained over the weekend in an overnight raid in various cities. Several pastors were arrested, including the Zion Church founder Jin Mingri, who was arrested in the early hours of Saturday after a raid at his home. The Zion Church shared in a statement that such systemic persecution is not only an affront to the Church of God, but also a public challenge to the international community. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio urged China to release the church leaders. In a statement, he shared that this crackdown further demonstrates how the Chinese Communist Party exercises hostility towards Christians who reject party interference in their faith and choose to worship at unregistered house churches. Condemning the arrest, former US Vice President Mike Pence and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have released statements on Platform X. When questioned about the arrest during a press conference, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian stated that he was not aware of the case. He emphasized that the Chinese government manages religious affairs in accordance with the law and protects citizens' religious freedom and normal religious practices. Lin also expressed strong opposition to what he described as US interference in China's internal affairs under the pretext of religious issues. Under President Xi, Beijing has intensified its crackdown on religious freedom, particularly targeting Christians and Muslims. Nonetheless, a growing movement of unregistered house churches have continued to emerge across China. The Zion Church was one among them, which was started by Mr. Jin in 2007 with just 20 people. Its network now includes around 10,000 people in 40 cities across the country, making it one of the largest underground churches in China. Jin's family moved to the United States for their safety while he stayed behind in China to continue pastoring his congregation. Authorities have since prohibited him from leaving the country. Sean Long, a Zion Church pastor based in the US, stated that Mr. Jin has anticipated a crackdown of this magnitude. The US-based non-profit China Aid has described this coordinated arrest of Christian leaders carried out by the police across multiple cities as unprecedented. The organization called it the most extensive and coordinated wave of persecution against Christians in more than 40 years. In France, the shocking murder of an Iraqi Christian influencer has taken a serious turn. The case has now been handed over to the anti-terrorism unit of Paris Judicial Court following growing suspicion that the killing may have been motivated by religious hatred.
The investigation into the murder of wheelchair-bound Iraqi Christian influencer Ashur Sarnaya in Lyon, France, has been transferred to the anti-terrorism unit of the Paris Judicial Court. According to Le Progrès, the investigating judge at the Lyon Judicial Court relinquished jurisdiction on October 9th, handing the case over to the National Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office. Sarnaya, 45-year-old, was stabbed to death outside his apartment by an assailant who had reportedly been lying in wait. The suspect, a man of Algerian descent, was arrested on October 2nd. At the time of the attack, Sarnaya was live streaming on TikTok. Sarnaya had lived in France for over 10 years after fleeing Iraq following the Islamic State's takeover. He was known for hosting live sessions on TikTok where he discussed his Christian faith and criticized Islamist groups. His outspoken stance had provoked hostility from some US, and he had received multiple death threats prior to his murder on September 10th. His killing sent shockwaves through the Christian community in France and abroad. French politician Marine Le Pen commented on the case, warning that France's immigration policies were allowing the entry of our own executioners. Christian groups in France also called for authorities to consider the religious motivation behind the crime. In a joint statement issued on Monday, October 13th, Lyon prosecutor Thierry Dran and National Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor Olivier Christin confirmed that the case had been extended to the National Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office through a supplementary indictment. The investigation will now probe whether the murder constitutes an offense of murder in connection with a terrorist enterprise and criminal terrorist association.
Ukrainian president will visit Washington this week to meet US President Donald Trump and discuss boosting Ukraine's air defenses and increasing pressure on Russia. Zelensky will join a delegation of top Ukrainian officials engaging with US lawmakers and defense partners. The visit, his third to the White House this year, aims to deepen US-Ukraine ties amid escalating Russian attacks.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced plans to visit Washington this week to meet with US President Donald Trump. The primary agenda includes discussions on enhancing Ukraine's air defense capabilities and strategizing ways to exert greater pressure on Russia amid ongoing hostilities. Zelensky confirmed that he would join a Ukrainian delegation already en route to the US, comprising of Prime Minister Yulia Seredenko, senior officials from the presidential office and National Security Council and other diplomatic representatives. The delegation aims to engage with US lawmakers, military contractors and other stakeholders during their visit. President Trump acknowledged the upcoming meeting, marking Zelensky's third visit to the White House since January. The two leaders had two phone conversations over the weekend, focusing on Ukraine's challenges, particularly Russian strike on energy infrastructure and battlefield development. Zelensky emphasized that while the discussions were substantive, they were insufficient, prompting the need for an in-person meeting. The anticipated talks are expected to strengthen US-Ukraine relations and explore further avenues for support in Ukraine's ongoing conflict with Russia.
The 40th annual Rosary Crusade of Reparation took place in London on Saturday, October 12th, with a turnout of around 2,000 people who gave prayerful witnesses through the streets of London from Westminster Cathedral to the London Oratory Church dedicated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Around 2,000 Catholics participated in the 40th annual Rosary Crusade of Reparation in London on Saturday, October 11th. The faithful processed through the streets of London with the statue of Our Lady of Fatima from Westminster Cathedral to the London Oratory Church dedicated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Inspired by the apparitions of Our Lady at Fatima in 1917 and her request that the faithful pray the Rosary daily for peace and conversion, the annual crusade is organized every year on the Saturday closest to October the 13th. This year's crusade has coincided with the Jubilee of Marian Spirituality celebrations in Rome. The participants processed through the streets, praying the Rosary and singing Marian hymns to make reparation for the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary. On arrival at the oratory, the faithful prayed the Litany of Loretto. Dom Cuthbert Brogan, OSM Abbot of St. Michael's Abbey, Farnborough, spoke about the crucial importance of the intercessory role of the Blessed Mother for peace in the world. The Rosary Crusade ended with a short adoration and benediction of the Blessed Sacrament. The next year Rosary Crusade will be held on October the 10th, 2026.
From candlelight processions to prayers of peace, over 200,000 faithful gathered at the sanctuary of Our Lady of Fatima in Portugal to mark the 108th anniversary of the Miracle of the Sun, a moment that continues to inspire devotion across the world.
Hundreds of thousands of faithful from around the world gathered at the sanctuary of Our Lady of Fatima in Portugal to celebrate the 108th anniversary of the Miracle of the Sun and the final apparition of the Blessed Virgin to the three shepherd children. The international anniversary pilgrimage held on October 12th and 13th was the last major pilgrimage to the shrine this year. Cardinal Claudio Dalla Zuana, Archbishop of Beira in Mozambique, presided over the two-day celebration. According to estimates from the sanctuary, nearly 200,000 pilgrims took part in the candlelight procession and rosary on the vigil of the anniversary. The original statue of Our Lady of Fatima, which had traveled to the Vatican for the Jubilee of Marian Spirituality, also returned home to the joy of the pilgrims. Archbishop Dalla Zuana addressed the faithful on both days of the pilgrimage, proclaiming a message of peace. As docile children, let us listen to and put into practice the word of His Son Jesus, thus forging new relationships that transcend blood, nation, or culture. This is the path to peace in the world, he said on October 11th. The Archbishop also emphasized that the apparitions of Fatima are the most intense and perceptible example of the presence of Mary, who points out the sure way to Jesus. On October 13th, a farewell procession took place at Fatima, during which the statue was carried around the chapel of the apparitions. The rector of the shrine announced details of the Virgin's pilgrimage to Rome, where the Pope consecrated the world to her Immaculate Heart and presented her with a golden rose. Following the procession, the statue of Our Lady of Fatima was placed back on its pedestal in the chapel, with the golden rose displayed before her. The miracle of the sun took place on October 13, 1917 at Cova da Iria in Fatima. The Virgin Mary had promised the three visionaries, Lucia dos Santos and her cousins, Francisco and Jacinta Marto, that she would perform a public miracle so that all might believe. On the day of the event, before tens of thousands of witnesses, the rain stopped suddenly and the sun appeared as an opaque, spinning disk radiating multicolored lights. It seemed to dance or zigzag toward the earth. Reported in numerous contemporary newspapers, the report remains one of the most well-documented public miracles of the 20th century.
In separate videos recorded in English, Spanish and Italian, Pope Leo XIV urged every Catholic parish around the globe to observe World Mission Sunday on October 19th and take up the annual collection that supports Catholic missionary work.
Pope Leo XIV has called on every Catholic parish to take part in the World Mission Sunday on October the 19th. In a video message, the Holy Father recalled that on World Mission Sunday each year, the entire Church unites in prayer, particularly for missionaries and the fruitfulness of their apostolic labor. He said that when he served as a missionary priest and bishop in Peru, he saw firsthand how the faith, the prayer, and the generosity shown on World Mission Sunday could transform entire communities. Your prayers, your support will help spread the gospel, provide for pastoral and catechetical programs, help to build new churches, and care for the health and educational needs of our brothers and sisters in mission territories, the Pope emphasized. He encouraged the faithful to commit themselves once again to the sweet and joyful task of proclaiming Jesus Christ to the ends of the earth. World Mission Sunday is held every year on second last Sunday of October. This year, it will take place on October the 19th, with the theme Missionaries of Hope Among the Peoples.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.